welcome learners. My name is Sukhriti and I am a business analyst, an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, and today I will be taking you through our learning module on writing a note, letter and email. Now all these forms that we discussed are all written forms of communication. Now you must be wondering, why is it so important to learn how to write these? After all, you can also just verbally communicate to your colleagues or your supervisors. Written communication is important in a workplace because of three main reasons. First is permanence. Writing something down makes that information permanent and able to be stored all the time. You must have often seen in your offices or clinics that there are documents that are stored in a file. It also provides proof of all kinds of decisions that were taken at some point in the past. And also anyone can later access these to get the information of what was done. For example, if a team changes later on and you are new or everybody in the team is new or a new department is formed, you can access the old documents to see that what was the agenda that was discussed earlier, what were decisions that were reached, etc. Secondly, it is important because it provides clarity of communication. Writing something down ensures that all the instructions are clear and there is no confusion or information that is lost because of verbal communication. When information goes from one person to another verbally, there may be differences in interpretation. Therefore, writing something down reduces confusion and chances of conflict later on and therefore provides a smooth working environment. Thirdly, writing things down provides professional tone. It helps to maintain professionalism in your day-to-day working and operations, and the communication between teams, team members or between supervisors and subordinates is systematic and structured. While you are doing applications, reporting, subordination, supervision, etc., all these things are properly done. Therefore, it's very important to learn written communication and how to do it effectively. But we discussed so many forms like a note or a letter. When is it that we should use which mode? Let us learn that. If you have to give a quick message, you must use a note. However, when you need to make a formal communication to certain individuals or to a certain department or to an organization in general or even a government body, you will have to write a formal letter. Sometimes when you have to make official announcements, then you must issue a circular or a notice so that everyone can read it and get to know what is the new announcement or change that is happening. If you have to send a message quickly to either one person or to many people, you can use an email. This is especially convenient in today's globalized world where people are working far away from each other. This is a very quick form to reach people. If you are applying for jobs, you have to use a job application, letter or send out an email. Now let us understand each of these in detail. Let us start with understanding a note. What exactly is a note? A note is a short piece of written communication that is used to convey a simple message. It is a very brief form of communication and very concise. Typically, notes are used to give reminders, convey some instructions, give small updates of day-to-day working, or to have quick communication within teams or within departments. A good note must always be short, clear and direct. It should be written in a simple language and get to the point quickly. That means it should use no confusing jargons or terminology that a reader may not understand. A good note includes the date when it was written, to and from, that means who is it written to and who is the person writing, because these things will give good context and authority to the note, and if needed, all of these things are provided. Mostly notes are written for colleagues or to a supervisor, that means for internal communication. Notes are not something you will use to communicate with someone external to organization. For example, you may write a case note about a patient's medical history to convey to a doctor or to a nurse or while referring them to another department. But when you are giving the same information to the patient themselves or to patient's family members, you will not usually use a note. Notes can also contain a quick summary of previous history, points or decisions that were made for reference. For example, in the example that we discussed, while mentioning about some medical condition of patient, you can also write in the note a quick summary of the brief medical history of patient, any other surgery or detailing that was provided to the patient, any past medical prescription that were given to the patient, etc. These provide good reference points to the person who is going to be reading the note and give them full context instead of giving them piece by piece little information that can cause misunderstandings. Suggestions can also be added in the note if required. Some remarks can be written that will facilitate the processing and understanding of the note, and so that the right person in authority or the next person who is reading can take correct decisions as needed. In a note, there may also be a number in a note sheet, for example, N1, N2, etc., and a file number where these notes may be stored. All of this is done to document easy access to notes, so that later if anyone is using these notes or referring to these notes, they will have proper systematic arrangement. If any reference of previous decision or documents or issues or proposed action is provided and there is approval that is to be required, then add all of these references in the file as well. What this means is, when you are storing this note in a file and you are referencing some form of past history in the note, then make sure you add supporting documents also along with the note in the file. Otherwise, someone who is reading this note later through the file will not understand what you have written or will not have proper context. So, you should also add the attached documents along with the right correspondence or reference number. If the note is taken for taking some approval, then after you receive the approval basis your note, you must issue a circular or notice. Let us look at some of the examples of notes. As you can see, the first example note to supervisor is requesting approval. Now, as we discussed, once this approval is provided, next step would be to issue a circular or a notice. You can also see there is a note to subordinate. That means communication via notes can flow both ways, from bottom to up, that means subordinate to superior, and also top to bottom, that means from superior to subordinate, giving instructions through the note or sharing any information, etc. However, in all of these forms you see one thing is same, that is, all of these notes have a clear action or expectation that is mentioned. All notes must have full clarity on what you as the writer of note are asking the reader of the note to do. There should be one singular purpose, and what the person has to do should be clearly detailed. No greetings or closings are needed in making of a note. So, it is a concise form. Next, let us learn about circulars or notices. We discussed that they are another form of communication often done after a note is made. A circular or a notice is a written announcement that is shared with a group of people. It is to convey information to many people at one time within the organization. Often these forms of communication are used for communicating policy changes, any holidays that have happened or are scheduled to happen, what is the meeting schedule looking like, that is, what are the next meetings going to be, when are they going to be, where are they going to be, etc. Or making announcements like informing about some event or a workshop that may happen, changing working hours of the staff, etc. Such a note does not require a reply. It is just written, put up somewhere so that everyone can read and take in and absorb the information that they need and act accordingly. This is more of an announcement. Some other example use cases of where you use a circular or a note are communicating a change in a policy or a guideline or maybe a new SOP, that means standard operating procedure is formed. So, you have to communicate that to your team so they can act accordingly. Maybe allowances are revised. For example, travel allowance of a day when someone is going out of office to travel or attend a patient, for example, somewhere, they get a travel allowance, or when they are attending a conference they get an allowance. That amount has been revised, that must be told. Maybe some rules are changed, maybe a new event or a workshop is going to happen, announcing that. Maybe some new appointment has happened in the team and a new member has joined, and what is their post? When will they be starting their working? So, giving that information to the team about the new member and also welcoming that new member, that is taken out as a circular or notice. A committee is formed, so committee constitution notice is there. Maybe for some award you have nominated some people, or you can even be requesting nominations from people. So, for all of these things, notices are mentioned. Maybe new equipment is installed or its training is getting provided. So, to give all information, you have circulars or notices. In the main body of the notice, you must explain the background, the content of whatever change is there, along with the date of implementation. So, for example, if the policy is being changed, like let us say leave policy is being changed and now people will be entitled to more leaves per year, then you must explain this. You must explain the change, that is earlier 5 leaves were there, but now 7 leaves are going to be allotted to people. You should also mention full details, like these policy changes and extra leaves are for people of what designation and above. What is the date of implementation? That is, when will this change come into effect? And also, there must be information of the signature, full name and designation of the person issuing the circular or notice. This is so that people can take it seriously and know that this is a proper valid notice. These notices or circulars are often posted on a notice board in an organization, or they may be circulated by an attendant to all staff so they can personally read it, or they may also be available on digital modes like a digital email or even online on an organization's website. Often websites will have an update or notice section where these kind of circulars are put up. You can think of that section of website as a digital notice board. So, whenever you are working in an organization, make sure to regularly check the notice board to see if there are any new announcements or changes being made at your workplace. This will allow you to be an informed and updated member of the team. Now, in a circular or notice, what are the components that should be there? First, there should be a clear header that it is a notice or circular. There should be a file number if it is going to be saved in a file, the date of issuing the notice, the topic or the broad subject of the notice. Then the message should be provided in concise form, that means 4 to 5 lines. And lastly, the signature and designation of the writer of the notice or issuer of the notice. Tone of a circular or notice should be neutral and factual. Don't give any informational, emotional points, and don't give any emotional judgments on it. Merely talk about the facts. This kind of notice, the audience for this is a big group of people. You will not issue a notice if the change impacts only one person. So, it must apply to a group of people or maybe a department or even the whole organization. Then the ending should also always follow designation and name of the issuing authority as we discussed. Here you can see some examples of notices. You can see that there is date provided, there is proper information provided. Like in the first example, we see a staff meeting will be held on 17th March at 11 AM in the conference room. Attendance is compulsory. So, the date, time, venue are provided and other details like compulsory attendance are given. And lastly, HR department has issued it. So, you know it is a valid notice. Anyone reading this will know that on 17th March 11 AM they must be there in the conference room. Now, the third form of communication are letters. A letter is a formal or informal written message from one person to another. Formal letters are the ones that are written for official, professional or business work purposes like business communication, making a request, complaint, etc. Informal letters are personal messages between people. So, here we will be focusing on formal letters. A formal letter follows this structure: sender's address, then date, then receiver's address, subject line, a salutation which means dear sir or dear madam or respected sir or madam. Then we have the body which is typically 3 to 4 paragraphs. A closing like thank you, regards or best wishes, and lastly signature or your name. Here we see an example for a letter for job leave request. We again see an example for some kind of issuance. Here we have an example for issuance of a new card. So you can see that in the context and in the body of the letter, there is the clear call to action, that means request to please issue a new card for savings account, and giving a quick brief reason why this is needed. That is, the previous card was damaged and is no longer in use, and a request to process it earliest. Common types of formal letters include writing it for job application, writing for some complaint, requesting something, inquiring about something, maybe writing to government offices, seeking some information or document or help, or even writing to your HR or manager for any information. Whenever you are writing a letter, make sure it is readable and professional. The font size should be about 11 to 12, with the font style very classic like Times New Roman or Arial. If you are handwriting a letter, make sure your handwriting is readable and proper. Use letterheads if available and as per company policy or government institute policy. Mention enclosures, that means if you are sending any attachments along with letter, write them so that the reader knows to expect some attachment and will go through them. Structure your letter in about 2 to 3 paragraphs. First paragraph merely introduces the topic and reason for writing. Second and third paragraphs give details and supporting information, and final paragraph summarizes the main points and tells what you expect the reader to do. The next form of communication, very important in today's world, is writing an email. An email is a fast and professional form of electronic communication in all workplaces. In an email, you have to, that is the sender's address, and then we have the CC, which is carbon copy. That means if you are sending one copy to other people, you have subject line, then you have greetings or salutation. In the letter that we had salutation, similarly we have greeting in email. Then you have a body or text of the mail, you have a closing line, and lastly your name. This is kind of like a letter, think of it like a digital letter. A clear subject line is very important in an email, even more so important than it was in a letter, because it tells about the purpose of the email very quickly. In most of the emails, even without opening the entire email, you see the subject line quick and at a glance. So, the reader will know that what is the email all about and gives them a quick summary and tells them how urgent it is. Add whatever you need in the main body of the email. So, you should ask all for approval if that is what you need, provide all information. If you need confirmation, mention that. If you are requesting a response from someone, end with a line like requesting an earliest response or requesting response as per your convenience at the earliest, etc. So that the reader knows that they have to send a response back to the email. If you have attachments that you are adding, kind of like enclosures in letters, you are adding these attachments, make sure that the name of these attached files is proper and professional, and mention about all the attachments you are writing in the body of the email so that the reader knows that there are certain attachments that they must also go through. There are certain etiquette that you must follow while sending out a professional email. First, use a clear subject line which is concise, to the point, but also very informative. Second, write short paragraphs so that a reader can easily understand things and it is not confusing for them. Third, do not use any slang words. Make sure your spellings and tonality is correct, polite and professional. Make sure that grammar rules are still followed, as this is a professional form of communication at a workplace. Then, fourthly, attach the documents carefully. Check that the documents are attached or not. Sometimes in hurry we forget to attach the documents. Make sure that does not happen, and make sure that the name of the documents that are attached are written professionally and tell what the document exactly is, so that the reader can open it accordingly. Then always end with a polite form of by or getting closure such as regards or thank you. Do not write in all caps because that implies like you are shouting at the person, which is a rude tone to use. Make sure to keep the tone polite, and proper punctuation and proper capitalization of letters conveys that. Use professional email IDs. Make sure that the email ID that you are sending out the email from is professional. Often it could be a mix of your name, last name, maybe your date of birth, etc. But do not use IDs such as coolpersonxyz.com or something like that, as that does not look good. Here we see examples of some emails. So the subject lines are very clear. Looking at the first example, we see the subject is submission of assignment marketing module. So that we know that this is a student submitting certain assignment to the professor, and the professor, without even opening the email, will know that this is a submission and submission for the marketing module, which is a good subject line. We see there is a brief message and all of the emails are ended with regards or thank you. You can even use greetings such as best wishes or best or cheers. Now, after having gone through the various forms of written communication, let us look at some general do's and don'ts that you should follow for all of them. Always remember to use clear and simple sentences and avoid complicating things unnecessarily. Second, keep your message focused. That do not add unnecessary details that will elongate the message or confuse the reader. Thirdly, make sure to follow correct formatting. So this is especially important in modes such as a note or a circular, where there may be a policy of the right format as per your organization. Then you must maintain politeness and a professional tone in all of the communication, just like the way you would talk to someone. And lastly, you should proofread it before sending it out. And some don'ts are: do not use slang or WhatsApp language, and do not write very long paragraphs or a big chunk of paragraph or text. Break it down into small paragraphs. Then do not miss the subject line, as this is one of the most important parts of any communication for the reader. And avoid emotional, rude or unclear statements. Try to keep information mostly factual or informational, and do not forget to add your name or designation at the end. Certain tips that you must keep in mind to become a good communicator in written forms is: firstly, make sure you think before you write. Keep in mind what is the message you want to convey, who is the audience who is going to be reading your message, and what is the purpose of sending this message out. Then you must use simple everyday English and do not make your sentences complicated. Third, very importantly, stay organized in whatever you are writing. Arrange the information in a logical order. Start with the purpose of why you are writing this message, give details, and lastly end with the call to action. That means what do you want the reader to do, like please approve or please confirm, etc. You must always read it once before you hit send button to ensure that the meaning is correct, sentences make sense, and there are no spelling or grammar errors, or no information is missing. You must balance the clarity with brevity. That means while your message should be brief, short and to the point, it should also not omit important information for the reader, therefore conveying a clear meaning. It is an art to strike a balance between clarity and this conciseness. Lastly, remember to focus on the reader's need. While you are writing anything or sending out any form of written communication, think for yourself. What does the reader need to understand, or what does the reader need to do, and what information they will need for that? And then make sure that your message answers this question well. So in conclusion, we see that clear written forms of communication help the work to happen fast, reduce the mistakes, and allows for better coordination among all people in a team. Choosing the right form of communication for this written method is also important, and choosing this right form depends on the needs of the message and the audience, as it helps to convey the information properly. Good written communication improves your professional image, efficiency, and your teamwork. But like all skills, it is a skill that is developed with practice. So keep in mind these tips when you're performing any written communication and keep practicing. Thank you.